Edit. Hello, welcome to my studio and welcome to another edition of Art Success with me, Adelaide Damoah. Today's interview is with Chris Hawtin. You may have seen the previous interview with him before, where I did an exhibition vlog here on site at the gallery formerly known as No Format Gallery, where he did his show The Metics, a really excellent show. And I think I described it as epic, and it really was epic. If you'd like to see that interview, that's linked below. Today's interview is all about art success. So Chris makes these large-scale landscape paintings with a lot of detail in the landscape and brings in these huge alien-like structures which sort of invade the space. Chris obviously describes this far better than I ever could. If you're interested in hearing his description of his paintings and why he works in the way that he does, then please do click the link below, which takes you to the other interview that I did with him where we talked specifically about that show, The Metics, in May 2016. But anyway, back to this interview. So I went to visit him at his studio in Camberwell, and he kindly took some time out of his really busy schedule to discuss his thoughts on the art world and success. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. At the moment, you're working full-time as an artist, and what I mean by that is that you're not necessarily doing another job to support your art. Your art is more supporting your life.
Yeah, I mean, it's a more complex scenario than that. You know, we have 2 children, we're renting a house in London, which is incredibly expensive. And, you know, I'm looking after the baby sometimes. My wife is working. You know, it's a much more complicated scenario. But yeah, I'm not doing another job currently. But if I need to, I will. You know, I'm not above that.
That's a good position to be in.
No.
No?
I guess it's a perspective.
Yeah.
It's a matter of perspective. No, it's difficult. It's really hard. It's hard to keep it going, but somehow we're managing.
Do you sell work from your studio currently?
Yeah, I'm not against it. I can do.
Do you partake in any like open studios and specifically invite people to the studio with a view to selling, or is it something that kind of happens by the by? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I haven't done open studios, but I think they're a very good idea. I invite people to the studio to see the work, and I think it's something very important. This is something you must do. Invite as many people to see the work as you can. I don't generally, unless somebody asks me, I don't generally invite people to the studio to buy things, unless there's somebody. I mean, occasionally people want to, but that's not usually the purpose of the visit. But you know, it may turn out like that. But I'm not sort of doing the hard sell from the studio.
In cases when it does happen from the studio, how do you price your work?
But people use formulas. Yeah, I used to. So a friend of mine did give me a good formula once. I can't remember what it is now. And I did use that for a little while, just because it sort of takes the decision out of it. Like it's a very difficult thing of how you value your work. And I don't mean the work necessarily just the work as a piece of work, but actually your labour that's gone into making this piece of work. And I guess it changes a bit with the market. You know, if you're selling it to a friend of yours, you know, you might do a mate's rates or whatever. You know, I mean, there are different aspects that come up if you're selling something out of the studio. I think everybody has difficulty pricing their work. I think it's really, you have to think of how much you'll let it go for. How much would it take for you to release that piece of work that maybe isn't going to be seen by anybody, or isn't going to be shown in a gallery if it hasn't already been. You know, there are certain sacrifices to a piece of work going somewhere, and what do you need to make in order to make that sacrifice worthwhile? But now I have galleries pricing the work for me. It does become a little easier. You sort of work around those prices.
Yeah. You've mentioned that you've got galleries pricing the work for you, and I know that you're represented by 3 current galleries currently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which ones are they again?
It's C&C in London, Eleftheria Atelier in Athens and Art Lounge in Lisbon.
Okay. And how did those relationships come about?
With a gallery in London, I was introduced by a curator. With the Lisbon gallery, I was introduced by a friend of mine who's the editor of a magazine in Spain. And with the Athenian gallery, I was introduced by one of the gallery artists.
Okay. So each time it was an introduction as opposed to you turning up on their doorstep or sending your work across?
Yeah, and I think that's generally how it happens.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with sending your work to places, and it can be, it's very helpful. You need to have as many people see the work as possible, and also you need to meet those people who are going to introduce you to those galleries. So you need to keep. Basically, you never know when one of the people that you meet are going to be the way that you find a gallery to show it. So you need to basically invite people to the studio as often as you can.
Yeah.
This is how you find it.
Yeah.
I mean, you go out and you meet people, and you'll find people who you share interests with, and you just need to invite them and make sure that people see your work. And if you have an exhibition, it's good to make sure you have images to send to people, even if they can't make it to the exhibition. People are interested to see what you're doing, and also people remember a lot longer than you think, and you can be in somebody's mind if they're curating a show, and suddenly they'll think, oh, what about this person? They did something interesting. But at the same time, people also forget quite easily too, so you do need to keep reminding people that you exist.
Yeah, I agree. Can you remember the first time you sold a piece and what that felt like?
I can remember, I think it was the first time, a friend of mine, Sarah, she was living in Brighton, bought a piece of my work, and the work was stored in my mum's house in Burgess Hill, and she drove down to collect it, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't fit this painting into her car, and we tried every type of manoeuvre to try and get it in. But it wasn't going to happen, so she had to drive all the way back down to Brighton and then come back on the train and then take it back on the train. So it was a bit of a palaver. And yeah, I felt embarrassed.
Why did you feel embarrassed?
Just because I'd put her to so much trouble to buy this piece of work. You have to, it takes some time to have some confidence about selling your work. I think that's a very natural thing. And this ties into what I was saying about valuing your work. And I think I was so grateful that she'd bought it, that I felt bad that she'd had so much trouble to collect it. But it's good. It is good when you sell a work. It gives you some kind of justification.
Yeah. And what's been your biggest challenge to date as an artist, and have you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge as an artist is knowing what you're going to do. So if you're a painter, you need to know what you're going to paint and how you're going to paint it. And that is categorically the biggest challenge that anyone's going to face, I think. I don't think it doesn't sort of drop down from the sky. It takes a lot of work, and you need to try out a lot of things. And and then some people just settle into painting the same thing for 30 years, sort of minor differences. And other people change what they do completely every time they exhibit. So do you stick with this thing, or don't you? It's making these decisions that is really the most challenging part of making work. And also, just keeping the practice going is very challenging. It's very difficult, and especially at times it can be very disheartening. And you apply for all these prizes and you get sort of piles of rejection letters and things. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be fairly tough to do it.
How do you deal with the rejection?
You get used to it. Hey, I'm used to rejection. It's just something that you get used to as you go through your career. you recognise that. I think it's the same in whatever you do. I think you apply for a lot of jobs and you get rejected by a lot of them. You apply for a lot of awards and prizes and then you get rejected. You try and get your work into an exhibition and it doesn't happen. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's certainly not. It's not as devastating as it might have been 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You put. I think you just get more realistic about, without sacrificing ambition. But you get more realistic about how many people are applying for these things, and that not everybody is going to be crazy about what you're doing. So you do put things into perspective a bit more.
Yeah.
I think you just grow up.
Yeah. What would you say has been your biggest success to date as an artist, and how did you achieve it?
Well, in terms of what might be from the outside success, or sort of if there could be an objective term of it, but we'll discuss that in a bit. I guess being brought into the Saatchi collection was a really important thing for me. It's really nice to be part of that collection, and that came about through CNC Gallery and Juan Bolivar, who's the curator of that show. In other terms, each exhibition that I make has a sort of overall theme, and it sort of works together as a piece. And I've been really pleased with some of the shows that I've made. There are two in CNC that I did, one in Art Lounge that I really loved, and then this recent one at No Format, which was the biggest show that I've done. And I was really proud of those shows. I really like putting together exhibitions. It's my favourite thing.
Really?
It's my favourite thing, yeah.
Is that why you decided to do the No Format exhibition entirely independently of any gallery?
Yeah, I don't, well, it wasn't really a gallery thing. It wasn't particularly it's not supposed to be a commercial thing. It was really just something as a sort of achievement of that work. The work was absolutely perfect for the space. The space was perfect for the work. And it was really an opportunity to get, for example, all 8 of those character models together, which I'd always wanted to do, and to have them arranged in this sort of ritualistic kind of circle. And then the paintings that I had were just perfect in the spaces on the wall. So it's like, it was a dream doing that. It was just perfect fit.
I thought so. It was a pretty epic show.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was very proud of it, actually. I really liked it.
You should be. It was brilliant. How do you define success in the art world and for yourself as an artist?
Well, Adelaide, I'm really glad you've split these two things.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I don't know how you thought to do that. Yeah, I think there really is. They're two very, very different things. I think because the art world now is at a sort of such a high stratum that you've got to be selling work for hundreds of thousands just to be considered part of it. The market at the moment is really a sort of difficult thing to get close to. So those terms of success are very different, on a very different level to what most people are dealing with. As a practicing artist, I guess you can set your own terms of what's successful. And I think anyone who manages if you're managing to live by selling your work, then fantastic. Is your work being critically engaged with to a level where you feel that your work is engaging with a wider debate?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's another question. And just being able to keep going, I think, is a major achievement. But I don't know. How do I don't know how I define success on a personal level. not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Ask me the next question.
Okay. Do you feel successful?
No, I don't. No, I think it's important not to be successful.
Why?
Because a large part of making work is about failure, and if you sit around being successful all the time, it will be a very dull practice. So I think you have to sort of embrace the failure. You know, making work is about addressing one problem and making decisions, and then taking it into the next piece of work and the next piece of work. And if you were just successful and sitting around thinking, oh, I'm really successful, then you wouldn't really be engaging with these things. There's an interesting, I can't remember what it is. It's in The Inhuman. There's a book called The Inhuman by Lyotard, where he talks about robots and how if we could replicate human intelligence, the issue would be that these replications of human intelligence would not struggle in having the unthought thought. So the thing that's never been thought before, and they would just carry on having these thoughts. You know, wouldn't have any issues for them. But as humans, to think of something new is a terribly difficult and painful thing.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's a struggle. I'm not saying I'm having amazing new thoughts, but as an abstract concept, this unthought thought is a source of pain and anxiety, and this is what it is that makes us human. So in a way, this sort of failure, this difficulty, this struggle, is the thing that makes the work. And without that, then you're in trouble. You sort of I think an issue with painting now is that a lot of paintings look like paintings. It's probably post Yves Alain Poir, and painting as a model idea, but you know, people think, okay, I'm going to make a painting. Okay, that's what a painting looks like. I'll make one of those. But that sort of, you could be quite successful at doing that. But the difficulty is actually sort of trying to take it to make something that a painting hasn't looked like before, and the difficulty of that. And that's really something that is quite a cause of anxiety. It's a site of anxiety. It's a site of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why you shouldn't be thinking of yourself as too successful, I would think. So no, I'm not successful in whatever terms that I didn't say was being successful.
But that's interesting because it's like the pain acts as friction,
Yeah.
so that you can push against to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, and you need to sort of you need to in a way head away from where you're most comfortable.
Yeah.
And sort of try and do something that perhaps isn't something that you love. A friend of mine once came to the studio, and this is a few years ago, and he said, he looked at my work and he said to us, Chris, it's everything that you like. You know, and this was a problem, you know, I just made a painting that was everything that I liked. And there was nothing that I didn't like, so you have to sort of keep adding issues into what you're doing. I think that's the only way you kind of work around making something that's a bit too sort of worked out and polite and you know, done.
Yes.
You don't want something that's too complete.
Okay, so if you could go back in time to 1999 and meet Chris Hawtin, who just graduated from university, what advice would you give him?
I'm not talking to that guy. I'm not talking to that guy at all. He can just work out his own problems. But the question is, what advice would you be giving to? I think there's a better question. I think, like, the advice I would be giving to somebody living in '99 is a whole world away from the advice you might be giving to people now.
Yeah.
You know, I think in '99 we left, you know, it was sort of Brit art, and we left all thinking we were going to be mega successful.
Yeah.
Like, we were going to be multi-millionaires in like 20 minutes. And now I think people leave thinking, well, I'm not going to be an artist. it's too difficult. There's no chance. So I think you'd have to be very encouraging to people leaving now, and it is really a case of finding a place to work, making the work, and then getting people to see the work, and you just do that again and again. But it's important. Don't turn down any opportunities to exhibit. Make sure that you're regularly getting people to the studio, and making sure that people are aware that you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, then you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's just about making it work. It's about getting into the studio, getting up early, working, try and put in a day's work. People think that artists go into the studio inspired. No, a lot of it's just really, really hard work. It's just working. So I think that's the advice. In fact, I probably should give that to myself in 1999 as well. It would be good advice.
It would be. Thank you very much for your time, Chris.
Thank you, Adelaide.
And welcome back. Thanks once again for joining me for that interview with Chris Hawtin. And please do subscribe to my channel, because by subscribing you get to keep up to date with interviews just like this one, and also my art exhibition vlogs and studio vlogs, which there will be more of those coming up soon. Please do join me on my other social media channels. I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and latterly Snapchat. And Snapchat is where you will find some behind the scenes silliness. That's the only way I can really describe it. Yeah, he's where I really let my hair down, so to speak. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you like it and you'd like to see more. And until next time, take care. Bye.